What's going on? This is Winslow, and going a bit more in depth with a Thinking of You project. And this one's going to be how I found the sample, chopped the sample, processed it, put it in the tune, made a banger. A banger. Who makes bangers these days? Anyway, yeah, Patreon saw it first. So if you want to see these videos way before they come out to the public, make sure you go over there. Throws a bit of support my way. You get a little bit more insight into my process and things like that, and other rewards here and there. So there's project. I'm zoomed into the sample, but before we go there, let's talk about where I got it from. So, got it from Tracklib, which is if you're not familiar, it's a website where it basically streamlines how you can clear samples and sample records and clear them easily. Just go to tracklib.com to find out all the details and stuff. It's pretty simple. Okay. Just for clarity's sake, there is kind of a referral code, and there is a referral code for me in the description. I think if you sign up for like an account or a trial or something, it gives us a couple extra credits, which let's down a little more samples. So I was digging around through collections and I found this one, You're Not There, by Kenny Jones and Hoskins and crowd. Let's play it. So when I got to there, I was like, all right, I can do something with that. If you know the story about the full track, I had I was mostly just working on drums. Then I started looking for what else I could do, and then boom, this is what I came across, and then put it all on top and made the banger. But yeah, the tempo is pretty close, 75 or 151. It drifts a lot, which I'll talk about in a second, and it's also very gross. Like you can hear all the vinyl crap in it. So yeah, but anyway, back to the project. So I usually just drop stuff in. It's already pitched and tuned just a wee bit to bring it in, relatively tuned, because as you know, or may have seen in the full breakdown, this thing warps and it speeds up, slows down very inconsistently. So it's relatively within the ballpark of tuning that I wanted. At least I started off with. So I usually drop the track in, make sure I time stretch it to whatever it says it is. Sometimes it's bang on, sometimes it's not, and I find my sample. So I did that a couple times. If we look back over here, all these different colors are basically different sections chopped. Okay. So once I have that, I usually do everything by hand. I have a keyboard with pads, and I thought about getting a machine, but I'm used to working this way. But I'm thinking of starting a different project, or just a different, kind of offshoot project from drum and bass, and just trying to work full, hardware and stuff. But the art stuff costs money. So did all this crap, but money I'm not sure I'm going to use, or products, Anyway. So that's what I do. I go there and I'll try and I got to make it line up with the drums. So once I find there, I start chopping it up and I find a riff. So here's the riff. Yeah, kind of a old 90s, 2000s almost with that one, kind of Timbaland-esque. Yeah, if you want to see how this track came from just this sample and some drums all the way to track, there's a playlist on Patreon which goes from the initial idea, V1, V2, V3, the master, if you're interested in that, because there's a lot of tweaks. But basically I wanted to rhythmically line up with the drums. So let me steal a drum loop and bring it over here. That was just the kick. Let me bring the whole entire drum loop. There you go. Make sure the sample lines up. Here we go. So I make sure I try to make sure the kick within the sample, so like the drummer, his hits line up with mine, and then there's like the bass line groove, which has its own kind of thing going on. So I make sure that's like just through nudging and whatnot. It's like da 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 da. If we zoom in, it's kind of hard to see, and I'm used to looking for it, so I know I kind of see where it is, like the slight peaks and valleys and stuff. So I try to chop it to where it maintains its original groove, but it also stretches and whatnot in a way that maintains like the groove I'm going for with my drums. You gotta match the groove. So it's sped up slightly. Each section, I think some sections are like more stretched than the last. See, like that one's 106 slightly, and that's 102, and that's 103, and it's a lot of just fiddling around of just like, all right, let me grab this edge, move it back and forth, you know, try to get these little peaks to line up on the beats. So like, it's this, what's this? Slight hi-hat, a change in the bass notes, the bass kind of percussive, so it brings it out. Like it's mostly the sample straight, but I just so that's a little bit more robotically correct or quantized. So yeah, and I did that for each section. So if we bring out this purple section, right? This is, what's this part? It's the other part. Yeah. So in here, I think this is, that's a different. So the other purple section has a completely different groove, but this one is where, if we go through it, play the whole thing. This one was a pain to stretch just right. So that's where there's a lot more cuts. Yeah, again, you can do this on like an MPC type device, machine, pads, keyboard, whatever, and just like, or Serato sample and trigger everything. Or you can just go in by hand and do it, which is, I like the meticulous kind of work that goes into it, just like with vocals and nudging, so they're right perfectly in time and stuff like that. So it has like that, the, what's it called, like the little chord from the guitar, like the trink, trink, and I want to make sure that lined up. So there's like rhythm in the sample, nudges a little bit. It changes the original rhythm, but it works because it lines up with my rhythm, and you know, everything has to be tight or it's a mess. Like drum and bass is too fast and too busy not to have things bang on when you have a thick and full arrangement like this. Anyway. Yeah, and then this yellow section, every section is just slightly different. Yeah, that's that little fill section. And then this part in the beginning is real simple. So it's like it's another part of the tune. It's chopped up because the groove is loose in this hip hop section. If we listen to it. As the crowd jumps around, I can make him hear it and lose it how musically it sounds. Without the vocals. Then another section. Yeah, that's not nearly as bang on. As you can see, some like kicks and some bass hits don't line up exactly on the grid, but the feel's a halftime. It's a loose swing, a loose groove, so it doesn't really have to. But when it's drum and bass time, everything's bang on because it's got to be. What's this? Different section. Yeah, I just pull these volume down because it gets louder and I wanted things more consistent. In a way, the compression wouldn't necessarily work. And that's basically how I sample things. So I went from like Tracklib, downloaded it over here, dropped it in. This one's pretty obvious, like what I wanted to sample out of it. I might have tried some other sections, but it was more straightforward. It was about the vocal or the idea of a vocal before a track came into the project. And yeah, that's why it's simple. Drums, bass, and a sample. Yeah, that's kind of it. This one doesn't really go any further. Sampling for me is 100% just about listening. Is it busy? Is it how easy it's going to be? I thought this one would be easy. It's not. Just line up the groove, things like that. The effect you're going for, the feel, like it's not like a methodical, I need this. It's like, let me listen to it. If something sparks, then I run from there, So try it. Even if like you don't, try it for like a trial, or you can go on Splice. Most of us have that, or just rip stuff from YouTube, which you shouldn't do. Or if you do, you shouldn't release it on the same EP. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, just do it. It's fun. I mean, sampling. We're going to, I'm not, sampling's fun. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it's taking something and recontextualizing it, which is the cool part for me. Anyway, so that's like the technical, like chopping and stuff. Yeah, just by hand. Sometimes I throw it into a slicer and try and keyboard it, but I really, because of the groove aspect of things, I need to go in by hand and stretch and do these things. But it all pays off. So let's go into processing the sample. So once I have my loop there, first thing I do is roll off the low end, which is gives me this. So there's two cutoffs. This one's on when the track goes full blast, so there's no low end, no bass line. And when it's just a breakdown or nothing else going on, no drum and bass, carnage, I don't know. You get this. You more or less get the full sound, full version with the original bass line, because it sounds more organic than just recreating the bass line through like a VST or something. Next plugin is Unfilter, one of my favorite ones. It basically gets rid of a lot of resonances. It cleans up some stuff. It's really nice. It's expensive, but it's nice when it comes to sampling and you don't know what kind of quality you're going to get. So play it without. My mind had just begun to pick up you. And with. So it kind of opens it up in a way. The bass is a bit more pronounced, but you can really hear the voice and everything else come through. A little cloudy there. A bit more rich and forward and present. And then there's some EQ and some other stuff. If you want me to like demo this plugin or like show you more how it works, stick out in comments. Yeah, be happy to. Then reverb, give it some space. Place it in a room, give it a bit more context within the tune. It helps it gel with the rest too. This Valhalla Vintage Verb ambience preset. I just tweak it a little bit, roll off all the low end, roll off some of the high end. Yeah. So it doesn't clog up the mix. And then after that, didn't even use that plugin. That's why it's disabled. Panning, I narrowed it a little bit. It's subtle. It doesn't really, like it does enough. But it was something I tweaked the whole time. Then we have EQ. So without. And with. So that makes sure there's no side information with the bass line. Bass line is just right down the middle. Yeah, you can kind of hear the side information. There's not a whole lot. Yeah. There was before when I was trying to like delay and do like some fake stereo stuff, and that's mostly why it's there, and I end up taking it off towards the end of the tune. Got tape, soft tube tape, a little bit of compression, saturation, pulls it together, tighten it. Tighten is such a vague word in this context, but I feel like if you know what I mean, you kind of get it. It's just compression, kind of gels the sample and the reverb and the bits of things I did. You know, if I made any peaks or valleys with EQ, it kind of squashes them so it's less apparent, but the effect is still there. It just has a nice tone. It's very subtle. A little bit of EQ up top. This is kind of one of my favorite things. Another EQ. So mixes, resonance, peaks, final, like EQ after the tape and everything, when frequencies start coming back after you start compressing, things like that. Sausage fattener is disabled. Filter, because it like low pass, high pass, normal. BB Duck. What is that? Oh, boom bap. So the boom bap drums, I have it sidechain to those. So when those are in, so it's just there so the snare and the kick can poke through when they need to. Yeah. Again, that helps when you start squashing things later on. Track spacer is for the vocal. I showed in the full overview. So when the vocal comes through, this just helps it sit in the mix a bit more. Like Snoop Town. I say that and then nothing just came up. Oh, it doesn't do it in the wait, does it not do it in the hip hop part? But it does in the drum and bass part. Oh, and this is the drums. Never mind. So track spacers for the drums, the drum and bass drums to fit within this sample. Yeah. So here we go. And then there's a track spacer for the vocal on the whole thing. That's what I did. Here we go. And I'm thinking of you. It really doesn't do that much, mostly because it was an early choice when I had more of the original bass sound in there. And then through mixing and stuff and different choices later on before finishing it, end up not really needing it, but I keep it in there anyway because it doesn't hurt. Mostly I forgot. There you have volume, automation, a lot of automation. So we got low pass, high pass. Here's the cutoff for like full bass, no bass in the sample, things like that. Volume, so it fades in and out. This section was a bit louder, so I brought it down a couple dBs. This is low pass. Or no, this is a high pass, and this is low pass. Unorganized Duncan would put them together, but you know. Yeah. So that's the sample, mostly. Basically, yeah. And there's a couple extra parts, like this is just a little chop for delay. Happens right before the second drop, and it's a little tag after the tune. So if you listen to that. I've been putting a lot of tags and stuff in my tune, just like towards the end, or things that don't happen a lot, but they just like, I don't know, like records I grew up listening to always had some extra like after the tune or before it. You know, it's a cool thing to listen to because not everything just gets dumped into a mix to be DJ'd and you won't hear it, you know. People do listen to this music. And last but not least, I just bounced the entire track because there's a lot of plugins, a lot of chops and things like that, and a lot of automation going on. And to make it simpler to mix, bounce the whole thing. stick a little bit of balance EQ, which is just barely doing anything up there. And then the same delay that it's hooked up to down here in the original chopped track is now over here. Yep. Slow delay. And that one's, that was going to a cool one. So what is this delay doing? Delay send, H delay, my sends are down here. No EQ, but so it's going to a mono delay, right? It's going into an auto pan, which is why you hear it like circling your ears. Because again, I make music basically only on headphones. And I like when cool things happen on headphones. So you can hear it kind of circling about. Yeah. And also it keeps it out of like the middle, which is where all the drums are and the vocals and stuff. And it helps, keep the mix clean and open. So yeah, basically that's how I sample. I find a sample, whether it's on Tracklib, Splice, YouTube, a record, Spotify, whatever. I keep a playlist on Spotify. I know we all hate Spotify, whatever, but it's like, it's convenient from a consumer's perspective. So I find the tunes I want when I'm just listening through like radio or suggested. I put them in a playlist that says to sample. And then I find later, like sometimes this one came from Tracklib. Drop it in the DAW, time stretch it to make sure it lines up correctly, find my chops, take the cut tool, chop them where I want them, and start rearranging and messing with groove and slip editing, moving it around so it lines up with the drum break I already have. It is a good tip to make sure you have like a groove set, because it's easy to set a sample to a groove, but you don't want to build a groove necessarily to the sample's groove. You want to chop the sample and you want to make the groove and make it adhere to that, especially in drum and bass. Otherwise, stuff will be everywhere. And then process it so it fits within the mix. Mine was a bit heavy-handed because this one was full of like vinyl crap and dust and noise and all that kind of thing. So some of them are like drop in, go for it. This one was a bit too crusty for my taste. But yeah, find you a bunch of different sections, try and tie them together, make sure your arrangement's tight. See, it's not the same sample chopped up the whole time. It's like this section with the organ, then like the main, why the clouds hide the sun, then summer breezes and whatever. Builds a narrative with the sample. It's not necessarily like all chronological within the real tune, but I recontextualized it, so it works, It's like, I'm sad, here's why I'm sad in the middle breakdown, and I'm still sad. I don't know. Something like that, and then track does his thing. Yeah, that's basically how I go about sampling all the time. So if there's something you want me to go more in depth about, anything, or maybe show you like from scratch, let me find one, break it down, make a tune around it, or an idea. Let me know in the comments. Again, Patreon saw it first. If you want to see these kind of videos, suggest videos, and loads of other things, click that link in the description. Check it out. Also, if you want to try Tracklib, there's a referral code in there. It gives us both a couple extra like coins, which is the currency for Tracklib, like points on Splice and stuff like that. Just download more samples. Yeah, go check it out. Hopefully, you learned something. Yeah, Winslow out.